so I guess he didn't want to be fired by Donald Trump. So Christopher Wray, who was initially put in place by Donald Trump in those, again, that era where, again, President Trump was a new president. You're trying to find good fits that can quickly be confirmed and trying to kind of counter Comey with someone with similar credentials to Comey. And unfortunately, what happened there was Chris Wray, now I wouldn't say he became another Comey to some extent, but he did order and approve the raid on the former president's and now president-elect's home. So at that point, you think about judgment. And it's not just because, hey, he did this to President Trump. He also did this to people who were pro-life activists and was showing up at their doors with guns. And remember, they did this to radical traditional Catholics. That was all done by the FBI. Christopher Wray is the lead. So it's a good move. Obviously, I think it opens the door too, where you look at the difference between a Kash Patel and when you go back to Christopher Wray, who honestly, in those congressional hearings, Logan, to me, every time I would see Christopher Wray, I was kind of like, that's not instilling much confidence in the FBI.
I think even though, like you said, he wasn't necessarily Comey, but he became a pretty toxic figure, became a name that you kind of, our audience would react to in a negative way.
By that raid.
Yeah.
But in some ways less because it didn't lead to basically an attempt to remove Trump from office.
Yeah, it more became an annoyance. Someone, when you heard the name, you knew that there was something that felt political was going to happen.
They were trying to bar him from actually being able to run.
Yeah.
And that was their big move there. Is that convicted felon, blah, blah. Yeah.
But here's what you have. You have Chris Wray saying, hey, before the end of the term, I am going to get out of here. And, of course, there's a lot of reasons that he'd want to do that.
Yes. One is there's a threat of a potential constitutional showdown because the FBI director is supposed to be independent. You're not supposed to be able to fire them. I think the current Supreme Court would say anybody in the executive branch who is appointed by a president can be fired by a president. Doesn't matter which president appointed them. They're not part of the bureaucracy. You don't have to show any wrongdoing at all. You could just say, this doesn't work. And there's so many conflicts now. How on earth, if you're Christopher Wray, could you really be sitting across with President Trump, knowing the fact that you've been trying to go after him, allowing others to go after him as well, to the point where you raided his home, faked the photos of where documents were, all over pieces of paper that you didn't give his team time to even put together. So, goodbye, Christopher Wray. Then we bring in Kash Patel and individuals like that. And I will say this, I think because of the disdain about some of these agencies, Logan, someone like Kash Patel, who they wanted to make in this controversial figure, is hitting the Senate, and they're realizing he's had every job leading up to this that would qualify you to be an FBI agent. They just don't like the fact that, like most of them, he's politically active.
Yeah, he's someone who has been a loud voice for a number of years now, really through the last 4 years or so.
As if Eric Holder was not.
The Rumble generation, I guess. He's kind of one of those guys who's come up and has become one of those names, one of those social media names that you hear that you maybe don't know about his true background. Look, I'll be one of the people who say that. I knew Kash Patel as an influencer, if you will, as a political voice online. I didn't know all about his background and that he is qualified for this position. So when the first thing came up that he was going to get nominated, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, of course, you do your research and realize, okay, he's an incredibly qualified person. We should hear first, I think this gives you an idea. This is President Trump with Kristen Welker on NBC News last week going over what would happen to Christopher Wray. Does he get fired? Does he not? We do know, obviously, that Christopher Wray has said, hey, before I get fired, I am just going to bow out nicely over the next few weeks. But let's hear that conversation.
Are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
So
that,
I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. And then when I was shot in the ear, he said, oh, maybe it was shrapnel. Where's the shrapnel coming from? Is it coming from heaven? I don't think so. So We need somebody to straighten. I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Kash Patel if he is, in fact, confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Kash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
And listen, I think Christopher Wray did the right thing here. He has not been someone who has been a very successful FBI director. He's gotten way too political, like the president said, raiding his home, those documents being scattered, sending in agents to spy on churches with no basis. It wasn't like they were looking for an individual who might be trying to utilize. It was just, hey, we should look into these Catholic churches because that's where we see so much domestic terrorism, come from. Except I don't see any. But you know what? They consider a lot of us domestic terrorists, with pro-life activists. And that is work that we are having to do, even with the overturning of Roe, even with Republicans in control, so pro-lifers in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. What I am hoping, Logan, more is that he is reshaping the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy while at the same time focusing on how to keep Americans safe from the drug cartels, from fentanyl, and also keep our economy secured where we're not the ones who are, sending all of these high tariff imports into the U.S. and not, putting enough tariffs on outside companies as well. And those fights, the goal here is keep America safe and then get Americans back on track financially. And you could do that very quickly. Stock market's already doing that, but you could do that very quickly if we get interest rates down and if the prices of things start to fall. I think you'd also see, Logan, less and less people who aren't able to buy their first home.
Yeah, I think it's
not the price of the home, it's what the mortguage ends up being.
Right. You end up being able to spend. I know this from personal knowledge. I purchased a home back in, I guess it was 2015.
Yeah.
And if I was just to purchase that same home at the same price, my mortgage would be nearly double, if not that. It's just is what it is, and it makes it impossible to even consider moving or coming up with options. My wife and I decided we're going to redo our house because we can't really look at anywhere to move that would be any upgrade. Right. It would be not even moving to the same.
Even with the fact that it'd be easy to sell your house in our market.
Sell it with no problem, but then where you're going. And I think a lot of people have this sort of problem, and they're looking to a Trump administration to address and fix some of these big economic issues that are hindering growth from a lot of young people who are trying, like you said, young people, by the way, I mean people even in their 30s, who are trying to make that next step in their life and their career, whether that
family, a home, kind of a place where you're based.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't work for everybody anyways, but we know so many people wish they could, are working hard, and have the salaries that in over 10 years ago would have been no problem to purchase a home. Probably a home that they didn't even imagine that they could purchase. But I've had one of my mortgage payments that wasn't locked in has doubled.
Yeah.
So, it went from, I think it was, I'll just say to people, the difference between $2,000 a month and $5,500 a month.
Oh,
that's a big difference. It's a rental property. So getting that back. So people are being hurt. There's a lot to do, but we have to clean up Washington first.